This video is designed to promote the safe and proper use of wire power brushes and abrasives. Wire brushes and abrasives are highly effective surface conditioning tools for applications such as cleaning, deburring, grinding, cutting, and finishing in a wide variety of industries. Like any other tool, the use of wire brushes and abrasives needs to be carefully considered for the job at hand and subsequently needs to be used in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendations, established usage guidelines, and all safety requirements, including American National Standards Institute and Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The purpose of this video is to explain how to safely use brushes and abrasives in order to reduce the potential for personal injury. In the hands of a skilled and properly trained operator who understands and applies the information contained in this video, cleaning, grinding, and finishing of various surfaces can be completed efficiently and safely. Used improperly, these products are potentially dangerous to the operator, co-workers, and equipment. Of course, a safe work environment begins with a floor being as clean and dry as possible to prevent accidental slips around power tools. Maintain proper ventilation or exhaust system. And the area should be free of all dust, fumes, and flammable materials. Also, the work area should be clean and well lit, as dark, cluttered areas encourage accidents. Appropriate clothing and other protective devices must be worn when the possibility of injury may be reduced by their use or as required by your company's safety requirements. Eye and face protection are mandatory for operators and others within the area of use. Anyone within close proximity of the work area must wear eye protection which meets your company's requirements. Be aware of potential hazards in your surroundings, including the path which debris will travel when using the product. Wire brushes and abrasives should always be stored in a clean and dry location. Prior to use, check wire brushes and abrasives for any signs of physical damage, which could lead to an out-of-balance condition or potentially lead to failure of the product. Check for a permanent distortion of the wire filaments, physical damage to a flap or missing flaps on a flap disc, cracks, chips, or indentations on grinding and cutting wheels. Never mount a damaged product, and always inspect a product which has been dropped for signs of damage. If the product has been damaged or is suspected to have been damaged, do not use it. Another important aspect of wire brushes is to inspect for rust and corrosion. Never use a brush that has any signs of corrosion. This is especially critical with steel brushes, as rust and pitting on the surface of the filaments create weak points where the wires are likely to fail prematurely. When using wire brushes and abrasives, there are general safety guidelines that must be followed. Always read the safety information sheets provided with the power tool, wire brushes, or abrasive, and comply with your company's safety requirements. Use only wire brushes and abrasives of the appropriate size, configuration, and speed rating for the tool. Just because the accessory can fit on the tool doesn't mean it should be used on the tool. Always ensure that the wire brushes and abrasives have an RPM rating greater than or equal to the operating speed of the power tool which you are using. Also, inspect the tool for safe operation and ensure that all tool guards are in place. Note that a specific guard is available for Type 1 cutoff wheels on right-angle grinders, which provides containment on both sides of the wheel. Always disconnect the tool from its power source prior to mounting or dismounting the brush or abrasive. For tools with threaded spindles, be certain that the thread size matches the brush or abrasive. Shank or stem-mounted brushes and abrasives must be fastened into a collet or three-jaw chuck, and the amount of overhang should be minimized before tightening. Because of the various ways to mount accessories to a grinder, always follow the manufacturer's instructions for proper mounting instructions. Accessories that don't fit your grinder will run out of balance and vibrate excessively and may cause loss of control or failure of the accessory. Failure to follow the manufacturer's mounting instructions can have serious safety implications. Once mounted, point tool in a safe direction and briefly power or jog the tool to ensure that there is no interference or excessive vibration due to damage or previous misuse. When products are in use, be aware of potential for kickbacks. Kickback is a sudden reaction when the accessory becomes caught in a pinch point or is snagged, and the force pushes the uncontrollable tool in the opposite direction. This may occur when using any accessory. You must always be prepared. Always keep a firm grip on the tool and position your body and arms to resist the kickback forces. Use caution when working on corners and sharp edges, as they have a tendency to snag the accessory. Cutoff wheels are possibly the most vulnerable accessory to kickback. Avoid or support sagging workpieces to avoid pinching of the wheel. Don't apply excessive pressure or make a cut of excessive depth, as this will cause the wheel to bind and create a kickback. Also, when interrupting a cut for any reason, allow the wheel to stop completely before removing the workpiece, otherwise kickback may occur. Do not restart the cutting operation in the workpiece. The wheel may bind or kickback. There are 4 key factors under your control which will limit the potential for injury when using a wire brush or abrasive. Think spot. S. Speed and size. Choose the appropriate brush or abrasive to meet or exceed the operating RPM of the tool. Also be sure the diameter and configuration of the wire brush or abrasive is appropriate for the tool in use. P. Pressure. Apply the appropriate force or pressure on the brush or abrasive. O. Orientation. Position the brush or abrasive at the correct angle to the work surface. T. Time. Control length of use and product wear to ensure safe operation. Let's review each of these in greater detail. When using right angle grinders, think spot. S. Speed and size. Choose the appropriate brush or abrasive to meet or exceed the operating RPM of the grinder. Also be sure the diameter and configuration of the wire brush or abrasive is appropriate for the size grinder being used. P. Pressure. Avoid excessive pressure and sharp impacts. When using wire brushes, avoid excessive pressure which can cause overbending of the filaments and heat buildup, resulting in filament breakage. With abrasive flap discs, avoid any pressure to the underside of the flap, which could potentially separate the flap from the backing. And when using grinding or cutting wheels, avoid any sharp impact which may cause fractures in the wheel, resulting in a potential safety hazard. O. Orientation. Use the appropriate surface alignment. For wire wheel brushes and cutoff wheels, maintain a perpendicular working angle in order to minimize the amount of flex and reduce the likelihood of wire breakage or wheel fracture. Never use a cutoff wheel for grinding. When using abrasive flap discs, use the preferred working angle of 5 to 35 degrees. Unless specifically designed to do so, do not use flap discs on edge or the back side of the disc. This may cause a loss of control or tear the abrasive cloth from the backing. T. Time. As the product diameter is reduced over time, it may become difficult to control, and the tool or guard may cause interference. Key indicators that a product is approaching unsafe conditions are loss of wire filaments on a wire brush or exposed glue on the flap disc backing. When using die grinders, think spot. S. Speed and size. Choose the appropriate brush or abrasive to meet or exceed the operating RPM of the grinder. Also be sure the diameter and configuration of the wire brush or abrasive is appropriate for the size grinder being used. P. Pressure. Avoid excessive pressure and sharp impacts. When using wire brushes, avoid excessive pressure, which causes overbending of the filaments and heat buildup, resulting in filament breakage. With abrasive flap discs, avoid any pressure to the underside of the flap, which could potentially separate the flap from the backing. And when using cutting wheels, avoid any sharp impacts which may cause fractures in the wheel, resulting in a potential safety hazard. O. Orientation. Use the appropriate surface alignment. For wire wheel brushes and cutoff wheels, maintain a perpendicular working angle in order to minimize the amount of flex and reduce the likelihood of wire breakage or wheel fracture. Never use a cutoff wheel for grinding. Do not force any products, such as end brushes for example, into tubes or confined areas. When using abrasive flap discs, use the preferred working angle of 5 to 35 degrees. Unless specifically designed to do so, do not use flap discs on edge or the back side of the disc. This may cause a loss of control or tear the abrasive cloth from the backing. T. Time. As the product diameter is reduced over time, it may become difficult to control, and the tool or guard may cause interference. Key indicators that a product is approaching unsafe conditions are loss of wire filaments on a wire brush or exposed glue on flap disc backing or flap wheel hub. When using bench grinders, think spot. S. Speed and size. Choose the appropriate brush or abrasive to meet or exceed the operating RPM of the grinder. Also be sure the diameter and configuration of the wire brush or abrasive is appropriate for the size grinder being used. P. Pressure. Avoid excessive pressure when using a wire brush. This causes overbending of the filaments and heat buildup, resulting in filament breakage. When using grinding wheels, excessive pressure reduces operator control of the wheel and can produce an unsafe condition. Steady, even pressure should be applied for safe use. Sharp impacts could potentially cause fractures in the wheel. O. Orientation. Hold workpiece perpendicular to the brush or grinding wheel face and use a contact point below 90 degrees or midpoint line to maintain control. The workpiece should always be placed against the tool rest. Bench grinders are designed for peripheral grinding. Do not grind on the side of a wheel. T. Time. As the product diameter is reduced over time, it may become difficult to control, and the tool or guard may cause interference. Do not use a brush that exhibits long wire breakage. It is an indication that the remaining wires are near their fatigue limits. Remember, start with safety. Be sure to read and comply with the safety information sheets provided with the power tool, wire brushes, or abrasives, and comply with your company's safety requirements. Inspect products prior to use for signs of damage. Think spot. Properly use wire brushes and abrasives by following general safety guidelines and using appropriate tool speeds, pressure, orientation, and limiting the time of use. By following these guidelines, you can help provide a safer work environment. Your authorized Weiler distributor can furnish information on our wide selection of industrial-grade products.